Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to Mullin It Over here on Heart of Ohio Sports. Nate Mullins live in studio. We've got Greg Kinn on the ones and twos keeping us live. And, of course, we got a special guest joining us in studio who I will introduce momentarily. But please, while we got your attention, take a moment, just a quick moment, share the video. Like, follow, subscribe on all of our platforms. If you're not liked, followed, subscribed, what are you doing? Come on, help us out. But sharing the video helps more than you know, folks. Once again, we've got a special guest joined us in the studio, Albert Onderko Jr. Did I say that right?
Yes.
All right. Professional sports photographer. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, I was introduced to you through a friend, Tony Gooding, friend of mine. You were covering a game that we were going to be covering, and he was like, hey, if you get a chance, you should introduce yourself to this guy. He's a really good guy, does some good work, does some work for some NFL games. I said, oh, really? Okay. Piqued my interest a little bit. So I started kind of following your page and following what you do, and got a little interested. So I'm a big sports nut. Obviously, I'm a media guy myself, so I always have an interest when it comes to, fellow media. And then, when I came across your stuff, I was like, this is pretty cool. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So thanks for coming on with me. I appreciate your time.
Anytime.
So let's start out. Where are you from? Like, where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Gibsonburg.
Okay. So that's why our paths crossed in Gibsonburg then. We were over there for a Calvert game covering Calvert versus Gibsonburg.
Right.
You were over there for that game.
Yes.
Tony said that you'd be over there that week. So I said, oh, all right. I'll see if I can find. I was way too focused on the game to even worry about anything else. But I did happen to find you on Facebook and friended you and found your stuff. But now you're into photography. You do a lot of stuff. Obviously, you got another job outside of photography. But what led you to become interested in photography?
There were several things. I mean, when my sister and I were growing up in school and at sports, my mom would take pictures of us. But I think the biggest thing was one of the biggest influences me was in 1993, the Oklahoma City bombing.
Okay.
Time Magazine had an article, and they had a fireman holding up a dead baby. And that was pretty heart-wrenching right there.
That's a powerful photo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And from that point on, I got more and more into it, and something I never went to college for. I did it on my own.
So it's just a passion project of yours.
Yes,
it's
definitely.
a hobby, but it's a passion.
Yes.
That's really cool. So, I mean, you've got a love for sports. I see that through your page. You're a Steelers fan, right?
Big time.
And you're a Pennsylvania fan, a Penn State fan?
Penn State, Pitt.
Pitt. What other teams do you root for? Any other sports? Do you follow any other sports outside of football?
Baseball, I used to like the Indians.
Okay.
University of Toledo.
All right. I like the Rockets. Coach Mike Hallett from Heidelberg, assistant head coach up there, offensive line coach at Toledo.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So with your love of sports, now when did you first start doing photography at sporting events? When did your first event happen?
Well, growing up, my dad worked a lot.
Okay.
And working at Ford, that took a lot of his time away from family.
Yeah.
So after I graduated and got in the working world and everything, and I contacted the Steelers about tickets for games. And I got my name on the waiting list. And while you're on the waiting list, they'll send you a form for 2 games a season.
Mm-hmm.
And I filled that out, and we started going to 2 here and there. Then there was a scalper that kind of friended us. We were cooking hamburgers and hot dogs, and the guy come by. He says, "You guys going to the game?" And then, make a long story short, he sold tickets, and that's
Right.
And that's when we got going more and more. So I bought the tickets from my father and I always took my camera.
That's cool. So were you started out like taking pictures from the stands then?
Yes,
That's awesome.
Getting beer dumped on me, getting bumped, and
Now, no Browns fans would do that to you, right? Now, come on.
no, they throw batteries and dog biscuits.
Never. So, I mean, you've done this for a while now, right? How many years you been doing this?
Altogether, pretty close to 30 years.
Wow. That's awesome. So, how many games do you think you've taken pictures at over the course of your career? Like, just a ballpark estimate.
8 to 10 again. 8 to 10 a season.
Okay. So that's, I mean, that's a lot of games. I'm just trying to do the math in my head, and I'm like, that's a lot of games.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll try to bypass the preseason.
Yeah.
So
do you do 2 preseason? You do mainly the home games, right?
Yeah.
So just home games, and then if there's any home playoff games, what's the process for that? Like if you wanted to cover a playoff game, is there a waiting list for that?
No. Like if it's an away game, you'd contact the media people with the Steelers and tell them you'd like, and they'll make the arrangements and you go through them.
That's pretty cool. So I mean, when you're doing this, I mean, what do you need to do when you prepare to cover a game like this? Like, what all do you have to do to get ready? Obviously, weather's involved, elements are involved, so you got to protect your gear. You got a lot of expensive equipment, but say it's just a normal game, just a regular game. What all do you have to put into this?
You just got to make sure you got extra batteries, and if you use rechargeable batteries, make sure they're charged.
Yeah, this guy knows. Pack extra batteries.
Yes.
This guy right here, sometimes he forgets those extra batteries.
I remember,
Isn't that right, Greggy?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Never.
I remember my first season doing that. Packed up the bags and everything and went. Excuse me. And I thought I had my batteries charged up. And I'm there. Nope, didn't. So I go to the CVS drugstore just down the street from the parking garage, and I needed the lithium batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't carry them. The only place I know that carries them is places like Meijer and Walmart.
Yep.
And so luckily I had the chargers and that with me. Otherwise, a 4-hour drive was for nothing.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
We had a similar experience this past year in baseball. Our equipment, we got a lot of pieces to our equipment. There's about 30 different parts that we have to remember to pack away when we go to cover a game at a mobile site. And one of our setups, the original setup that we started out with, has a Mac Mini, which requires a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. Mm-hmm. You need all that in order to use the computer, right? Well, I got the monitor and I got the mouse, but for some reason I forgot the keyboard, and you can't put the password in without the keyboard. So we're in, what was it, Clyde? Was that where we were at, Greggy?
Yeah,
Clyde. And I'm like, oh my, this is a half hour, 20-minute drive back to Tiffin to go get this keyboard. The game's about to start in like 25 minutes. Like, there's no way we're going to make it back there and back with a keyboard. And Greg says, I think there's a Dollar General nearby. So he runs to the Dollar General, and we find a $5 keyboard.
It's like the last one.
The last
one of those like multicolored, cool gamer type ones that like I knew they had. I was like, they always have these mouse and keyboards like this and stuff.
Right.
So like, yeah, lucky for us, I had one left on the shelf when I got there.
But we ended up, he snagged that, got it back. We ended up starting the game up just in time. I mean, literally, I think we missed 2 pitches of that game. That was it. But it was. We've had similar situations. That's why I can kind of relate to that. You want to make sure you've got everything. You have a checklist of things that you need before the game. Now, when it comes to, I mean, I'm a little bit off script here, but like with your lenses, you got some big lenses that, I mean, do you have like cases for each thing, or do you have like one big case that you put everything in?
I have one big case, and I learned to lug that thing around since 2017. And if it didn't have the wheels, it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah. I like the cases with the wheels. I'm a big fan of those.
Yeah.
Especially when you have multiple bags.
But I remember when you were saying about getting prepared, I remember one game, I mean, it was raining horribly outside. We were playing against the Bengals. And a photographer from the Cincinnati Bengals was digging in a trash can. And I happened to walk by, and I asked him what he was looking for. He says, man, I don't have any rain gear for my camera, and I don't want my camera to get wet. I said, hold on.
He was looking for a poncho, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I had extra ponchos, and I had extra rain gear for the camera to cover the camera, and I gave him one.
That's really cool.
And he's like, what owe you? I said, don't worry about it. I said, we all get in these fixes. I said, I'm just glad I was able to help you out.
That's really cool. See, there's nice people out there. I just don't meet very many of them. No, just
Well, don't it gets competitive. Trust me.
for sure. I can only imagine at those games. Yeah, and you're probably jockeying for position down there.
Yeah, get the good
Well,
shot.
I remember one time.
Is it like a fishing pond where hey, this is my spot? You're not sitting, like.
Well, over the years, if you get to learn to know the people, they respect you and everything. And there was one guy, his newer guy, a couple years ago. I'm standing in my spot, and I felt something on my leg, and I happened to look down. He's laying on his belly on the ground with his camera going like this, taking pictures, and he's hitting me in the shin, like wanting me to move my leg. And I'm looking down at him like, really?
Yeah, sure. Let me move that out of the way for you so you can get a weird shot here.
And I'm like, if it was any other situation, I probably would have. But I mean, he had the whole area where he could have he chose to lean up against my leg, and I don't know. But yeah, I guess
Just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
I guess I'll move my leg a little bit there. You can get your shot. All right, now that's good.
Right.
So
I was just thinking I would have started like nudging him with my leg when he was trying to take pictures. Like, well, whoops. Well, sorry about that. Oh, I didn't mess up your shot, did I? Well, maybe you should scoot away a little bit, huh?
whoops. Oops. So, I mean, you are credentialed, right?
Yes.
How long have you been credentialed as a media member?
Since 2005.
Now, what all goes into that process?
Well, I'd like a little story about that.
Yeah, for sure.
When we were talking, I started taking my camera at games as a fan, and it was the Steelers and Raiders playoff game in 2002. And I'm talking with my father, and I'm like, one of these days I'm going to be down in that field taking pictures. And he's like, yeah, right, uh-huh. So as it happened, it was a Popular Photography magazine, and I saw an ad for credentialed photographers needed. So I answered that ad, and the rest is history. And,
That's cool.
And when my dad, from that point on, he's like, oh, there's got to be something to it, some kind of. So when I got my first game, I bought him a ticket, and he's like up in the stands. Now, Albert, when you see that, you got to stand over here, and like coaching me. And I mean, I had goosebumps in that.
That's so cool.
My father and I were really close, and
Yeah.
sometimes we didn't agree on a lot of stuff, but that game, I take that with me wherever I go.
That is, I mean, that's a unique experience. Not many people get to have with a parent. So, yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So when you go to these games, what all does the NFL provide for you as an NFL media member?
They allow us to go in certain areas, but a lot of it's restricted, and we're not allowed.
Okay.
But they do provide us a lunch and everything, and they'll give us a list of the players' names, where they went to college, and when they went drafted, and all that, and for both teams. So when we write our notes, we have something to go back on.
That's awesome.
That is really cool.
Yeah, that's so
We don't
helpful.
even get that at some schools here in
really?
the area.
Then at halftime, they'll bring us the first half stats, and then after the game, they'll bring us the second half stats plus the full game.
That's awesome. Now that's kind of like a Heidelberg experience. When you go to Heidelberg to call a game, when we go there to cover a game, they have a stats department, and they will literally during the game hand you stats after each quarter. After the first quarter, you get stats. After the halftime, you get stats. And it's pretty cool. So to be able to keep track of that kind of stuff while the game's going on,
Right, and be able to pass that information on through the stream to the viewers and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. It's awesome to have that.
Yeah, and when you have that list of the coaching staff and the players, and you can get to see like, oh, this coach used to coach for the Steelers or whoever, and he's over here now.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys. That's kind of one thing that you can do for players as well. Like, oh, he used to play for the Browns, now he's on the Steelers. Like Joe Hayden or Joe Schobert, another one example.
Right.
Or a player that used to play for the Steelers, playing for another team. When they come to play the Steelers, you're like, oh, hey, I remember him. He used to play for the Steelers. That's kind of cool. Now, with the credentials thing, do you have to renew that like every year?
Every year.
And do you go through the NFL for
actually,
that, or
when I go through my editor for the credentials, it's every 3 years.
okay?
But to get credentialed for a team, that's every year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So the NFL requires you to have credentials every 3 years through
Yes.
your editor, but the teams themselves then require their own credentials, correct?
Right. Well, I should have brought one with me, but they'll have like the event, and they'll have Steelers versus Saints or whatever,
Yeah.
and they'll have the date on it, and then you got to wear that. And ever since COVID, they give you an armband now. It's a yellow armband that you have to wear,
Yeah.
and if you don't have that, you're not allowed access.
Huh. Well, that's kind of they put the clamps down on a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah. 2021, it was impossible because they restricted everything.
Oh, for sure. And well, during the COVID season, nobody was allowed. And then when they started letting people back, it was like everything was still, there were so many restrictions. There was, there was so many, the contact tracing and all that stuff was still going on.
Capacity limits and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, everything was limited, and I think it got to do like 3 games in 2021.
Yeah. Now, have you ever gotten any resistance from any teams about covering games? Like, obviously, you just do home games, but have you ever tried to maybe cover a road game, like maybe go to a Browns game or something, cover Steelers?
I've tried. I've got to do like 3 different Browns games when Pittsburgh came in town, and I was thankful for that, and I enjoyed the experience. I've tried Detroit, and I've gotten nowhere with that.
Yeah. It's just whether they respond or not.
Right.
Okay. That's understandable. I mean, there's some ADs in this area that just won't respond to me when I email them for whatever reason.
This past Thanksgiving, Buffalo Bills played at Detroit, and they have a Buffalo has a player, Micah Hyde from Finley.
Yeah.
Or
Fostoria.
And I wanted to cover that game, but when I found out he was injured for the rest of the season, I said, well, that's it. I'm not.
Yeah. That was one of the things that if the Browns were going to play the Bills and Micah was going to play in that game this year, they were going to play this. They played this year, but if Micah was going to play in that game, we were going to try to get credentials as well to try to at least go get some interviews with him after the game, being that he's from Fostoria. But when he got hurt, it was kind of like, all right, well, that kind of shoots that down. So,
and I think it was 2018, 2019. Genoa Comets had a player that went to Wisconsin, was drafted by was it Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
And I went to Genoa and asked if I can get a Genoa Comets hat, and I wore that at the game, so he would know who I was. And I was going to interview him after the game, but it was like he just wasn't in the mood.
Yeah.
So I just didn't bother.
Yeah, I mean, probably was on the losing end of things and just didn't want to talk, huh?
Well,
I mean, when teams play the Steelers, they're usually not in a good mood afterwards.
let's put it this way: T.J. Watt educated him that game.
Well, I mean, he educates a lot of people.
Yeah.
So now, when you talk about football, now what about other games? How many football games per year do you usually cover?
It used to be just NFL.
Okay.
But knowing Tony Gooding at work, he asked me about taking pictures of his son's football games, and I've been doing the high school games for the last 3 years now.
That's pretty cool. So, and it was just, he just reached out to you, see what you were doing on Fridays. You had some free time available.
Yes. That's
really cool. Honestly, that's awesome. And you just do it out of the goodness of your heart. You just want to do it. You're not getting anything from it. You obviously share those pictures with family members and that kind of stuff, but you're not doing it for any kind of recognition. You're just doing it because you like doing it. That's the passion. That's how you know somebody's really passionate about what they're doing.
The pictures are there if they want to buy one or whatever for their wall at home. They're readily available. But yeah, I love photography, and I remember I was eating at Frickers with my dad after it was a Monday. And I went to get some pictures developed, and I'm looking, and I heard this little kid walking behind us because we were sitting at the bar. He says, "Big Ben rocks." And I said, "Dad, should I give him that picture?" And I went over to the table where his family was, and I said, "So you like Big Ben, huh?" He said, "Yeah, I do." And I asked his dad if it was all right, and I gave him that picture, and it was like his eyes just lit up.
That's so cool. Yeah, that would make a lot of kids' eyes light up. I mean, when you got your hero on a piece of paper, I mean, you probably make a lot of people's lives pretty happy. I mean, being able to do what you do, providing that for, you know, the fans out there.
Well,
What were you saying, Greg?
no, I was just gonna say, I know for me personally, you know, I love watching the sport. I love, you know, technology nowadays, 4K cameras, great picture, great video, but there's just something about like sports photography that you can't beat. When you
Yes.
capture those moments in a still moment, like in the
Yeah.
middle of a play, in the middle of a throw, in the middle of a catch, you can't beat that stuff, man. And then like us working in the media, you know, that's like a godsend for us when we're trying to make graphics or images or posters for things. Is like to have that shot, to have a
Yes.
great shot of a player. It's just, man, you can't beat that stuff.
Well, and with the equipment that you have to be able to capture those moments in full detail while they're in motion, while they're in action.
Because like anybody can take a picture, but not everybody can take a great picture.
Not like these. Yeah, most of them are blurry, or you know, they're capturing the
Way too
trail
small.
of the. Yeah, you can't, or it's grainy, or you know, some of the pictures that we've been able to use some of your pictures for some of our posters. And we always give you credit for it, but it's always like it astounds me at some of the shots that some of these photographers are able to get, because you know, you're in one spot trying to take pictures of the entire field. You know, it's not like you're moving around, and you're down field level. So to be able to get some of those shots, I think it's pretty remarkable.
Right. And like, you know, and when we're using it for a poster, I can make the
Yeah.
coolest poster in the world, but that poster isn't complete and it isn't really made until it has that shot.
Yes.
Until it has that moment in it.
Years ago, when I was first learning all the ins and outs of the NFL, a photographer's telling me, he says, don't rush anything. You're gonna get your chance to get your shot. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
It'll happen. And I went by that for years. I mean, you see people running all over here and there, and wanting to get that shot, or they got lines on the field for a reason. You're not supposed to go past it, and there's some that do that, and then you're not supposed to. I've seen them get escorted out of the stadium for doing that. And but yeah,
Sounds like a Greg Ken thing. No, I'm just lines are meant to be crossed.
Oh, I'm not supposed to go over that line?
I have a permit. It says I do what I want.
Well, I had one person one time tell me, "Oh, I asked the referee for permission to do that."
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry,
I
but the
bet you
referee
did.
doesn't run everything, bro.
I'm like, well, let's put it this way. If that referee sees fit and he throws that flag for illegal participation, it's going to be on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be the only photographer in history to get a flag thrown on me. Thank you very much.
I penalized my team.
Now,
I'll never have you back after that.
right, exactly. And never get another invite ever again. So, do you cover any other sports outside of football? Just football? Is that?
I tried basketball a couple of times, and I've been learning about that. It's a little bit harder of a sport.
Fast paced.
Yeah, and not only that, but OSHA, they're kind of like leery about where you stand on.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said, Nate, that they told us that you can't have a sideline for basketball.
Yes, we're not allowed to have a sideline reporter for basketball.
I'm sure it's probably the same kind of situation there where it's just, you're too close to the court, you're too close to the action.
Well, and Greg, we were there at the Calvert game last night. You saw the cheerleaders on the sideline. It felt like,
Dude,
when the
that gym
teams
is
were on
not
one,
big enough.
because there were cheerleaders on both ends of the court. When the teams were on one end, these cheerleaders were going like this.
Oh yeah, like when they were, they were having them rebound the ball and or whatever. The ref would hand them the ball, and the girls are like, like they have to squeeze out of the way because there's no room anywhere.
The ones on the other end of the floor are cheering, and then as soon as the ball gets to their end, they stop cheering and
Up against the
wall. So now, what's your favorite sport at any level to cover when you consider everything like travel, expenses, everything that goes into it? And like when you obviously football is your sport, but what level of football do you like the most?
I'd like to say high school, but it's a toss up between high school and pro. I mean,
The reason I ask that is because when you think about Friday nights, that Friday night atmosphere, I feel like that's a game day experience that's unmatched in sports. You know, you don't get that experience any other venue, any other place. It's such a unique setting. You know, what do you think the best game day experience is for a photographer?
I don't know. It just like say the high school games I'd cover. Like the kid scores a touchdown, and it's one of the most amazing things. You know,
Yes,
just that long run or that long pass. You know, and a fingertip catch.
yeah. There's nothing like it. There really is. I mean, it's such a unique sport. High school football is, I mean, you think about it, 95% of those kids will never play that sport ever again in their lives. You're never going to find the time to be able to suit up, put all those gear on, get back in a team setting. I mean, unless you go on to play organized football at a professional or collegiate level, it's not like you're going to get together with your friends and go play a game of football in the backyard. And that's for a lot of those kids, you know, when they're done with high school football, that's it. They're done with football. So it's just such a unique experience for a lot of these kids because, you know, you get 4 years and that's it. So I think a lot of those kids, you know, that's why it's such a special experience, is because, you know, everybody that puts everything into it knows that there's a finality to it.
Right.
You know?
And this year in particular, I've been doing Tiffin Columbian for the last 3 years. And after the last game this year, the players signed a card for me, all of them. And that really touched me, man. That meant a lot to me. And to this day, I mean, it was one of the greatest feelings in the world.
That's so, I mean, honestly, you fans out there have no idea how much it means to media members to get any kind of appreciation. Am I right?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, we're there doing our job. We're there because we love to do it. Don't get me wrong. I don't need the adoration or the admiration or any of that. But man, it makes us feel really good. It makes you feel like, okay, this is why we're doing this. You know, like there's certain times when, you know, you'll get, like we get grandparents that come up to us at games or parents that come up to us at games and say, we can't thank you enough for you guys covering this game because, you know, my dad was never been able to make it to any of his games because he's got a handicap issue. But because of you guys, he's been able to watch his grandson play football for the first time or play baseball for the first time. And I just can't thank you enough. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, you don't think about it while you're doing it, but then to be able to get that afterwards, to be able to get that thank you, you know, like you said, from those kids from Columbia, and that means a lot to you because, you know, you might not think about it while you're doing it, but you put a lot into it. And you don't do it for the accolades. You don't do it for the respect, or you don't do it for any of that. You do it because you love it. But
right at the end of the day, you're really not doing it for you. You're doing it for the people.
Yes,
because like you know, you're not keeping these pictures. They're not for you to be like, oh man, I just really like this picture. Like you take it so that they have these memories and their families do. And exactly, yeah, it's really nice to be appreciated.
It is.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you have to have a favorite game of all time that you were at. Now, what game was your favorite one to cover and why? I know there's a lot of them. I mean, you said you cover about 8 to 10 games a year for the last 30 years. That's about 300 games.
Actually, I've done NFL since 2005 was the first season I'd done that.
So that's almost 20 years. So yeah, you probably got almost 200 games under your belt.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's a lot. What do you think your favorite one is so far?
It's hard to tell, but the one that strikes me the most, and I'm supposed to be neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, right.
And Antonio Brown ran back I think it wasn't a punt. It was they were doing the lateral all the way, and Antonio Brown just sprinted up the field, up the sidelines, and I think it was maybe the 10-yard line. He stepped out of bounds, and I thought he scored. So I went, yeah. And I'm looking around. Oops, I'm not supposed to do that. and come on, they showed it on the jumbotron that it just touched the white line, and it didn't count. So
and then on the jumbotron, there's you with your hands up like this as they're showing the replay.
Oh man, I was hoping.
So I got a question for you here.
Sure.
I'm gonna make the assumption here that since you photograph mainly football, that is your favorite sport to watch, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay, so do you ever find yourself in a situation when you're at these games where you get lost in being a fan and forget that you're there doing your
yeah.
job?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I can totally see that happening for sure. Like just getting caught up in the action and then be like, oh yeah, I forgot to have this camera around my neck.
Oh yeah. And the biggest thing is, you got it in the back of your mind is watching them players when they come off the field.
Oh, yeah.
and get hit.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. And you got to be aware of that. You got to be alert. You got to be on your toes down there.
Well, yeah, like when I started as a sideline reporter, Nate told me that was like one of the first things he told me. You got to be very aware of the surroundings down there. These guys will take you out. You won't ever see them coming. And then Nate had his wife Chelsea photograph a Heidelberg game for us a few weeks back. And what was it, like the first quarter of the game?
First
she got
quarter.
wiped out. Just wiped out.
She's looking through the lens, and she's standing on the sideline, and they just came straight for
Right
her.
at her. Like, oh no.
She comes up at halftime. She's got this big bruise on the side of her face. She's like, I got hit. I'm like, geez, are you okay? Oh my God. I'm not sending you back down there. Never again. She got mad at me after that because I never let her cover another game.
Put her in some bubble wrap first.
I remember one time, I think it was 2017 maybe. AJ Green for Cincinnati came across the field on the slant pattern, and he's coming off the sidelines, and I had my camera, and I'm wanting to move, but I'm like, come on, I couldn't get my leg to move, and right at that last second I moved, but his shoulder pad went right across, brushed against my shoulder, and when I'm watching him come on, his eyes is about as big as mine, I think.
Yeah, because you know that they're like, I can't stop, get out of the way.
Right. So what do you think, what's your favorite picture that you've ever taken? Now, Greg, I think you've got this pulled up here. You got it as a reference material, but walk us through this moment and how you got to this picture.
Okay. I went to the back of the end zone because I had a hunch, and Steelers were playing the Patriots.
Now, this is a regular season game, right?
It was a regular season game.
Okay.
And Joe Hayden, I don't know how high he jumped, but that was, I mean, I think his knees was up.
His feet are over their knees in this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
And he, with his fingertips, he caught the ball, it intercepted, and I think it was Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski took him to the sidelines, and Joe Hayden gets up and he's pointing his finger and he's running right straight in the back of the end zone to where I was, and he's looking right at me the whole time, and he comes up and he says, I want that picture. So I sent it to him.
Yeah, he made it known right away. He said, no, I want that one. That's the one I want. And then there was so that was the one, we pulled this off of Joe Hayden's Instagram page. You can go to his Instagram page and actually find this picture. He posted it. And then the comments, Greg, what was one of the comments? TJ Watt.
he was like, I got to get this for the house. Get it hung up and framed.
That's awesome. So do you ever have any interactions with any of the athletes at any of the pro sporting events? Like when you go to cover a game afterwards, do you obviously you have some access to the locker room afterwards, but do you ever get a chance to interact with them like while you're out on the field, like maybe before the game, something like that?
Sometimes we're not allowed to talk to any of the players or the coaches unless they initiate the conversation. And whether if we're in our locker room getting ready to come out to the field, we always got to give the players the right away. So it was Odell Beckham and another player when he was with the Giants back then. We were getting ready to go out of the locker room to the field. And they held the rest of the guys back because the team was going by. And Odell looks at me and he says, you guys going to get some good pictures today? I told him, you get them spectacular catches like you have been lately? You better believe we will. And then we got to the field while they're doing pregame warm-ups. Offensive lineman had his little handheld video camera. He's taking a video of me and my assistant. And I've been looking for that on YouTube ever since. I think it was something for his personal diary.
Right.
And here they were talking to us, and how we got into doing pictures and stuff like that, and that's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Them taking like a personal interest in you guys and your job and what you do. They're out there doing their part, and they're interested in what your part is.
So what kind of things do you like to do outside of sports and photography? Like, what are the things that you like to do when you're not taking pictures and not at work?
Sometimes I just like to sit and chill and
There
think
you
about
go.
what I want to do with my with my camera the next time, or sometimes I go to the park and walk and take my camera and take pictures of the wildlife,
That's cool.
or like architecture or whatever.
That's awesome. So you do obviously photography outside of just football.
Yes.
Do you do any you ever done a wedding or anything like that, or
In
like
fact,
senior photos or anything?
I've done senior photos, and I've done Tony Gooding's wedding, his first one,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do a few more here, but I've also had the opportunity to work with some models too.
Oh, that's a feather in the cap right there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you get to be if you work with a model, do you get to be flown to exotic location and
No,
beach photography? Is that?
Well, I just pretty much do it local here.
Yeah, I'm just making.
But no, that'd be something different.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
So do you do how can people, if somebody wants to see what you do, how can people see your catalog of work?
Right now, I'm not allowed to put any of my NFL stuff on social media because intellectual property rights and stuff like that. But
So when you take pictures, you basically have to give those to the NFL.
yeah, or send them to my editor for publication or whatever.
Okay.
Or local newspapers, I'll send some to and say, I covered this game. I thought you might be interested in some of these pictures.
That's cool.
So it's just like a restriction.
For instance, I'll give you an idea. Amanda Knox, that was a female POW.
Okay.
Okay, the Steelers honored her.
Yeah.
This past game, and I got some really nice pictures of her. And I thought about wanting to send it, to some local newspapers around here because I think she's from Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Cleveland, I believe.
I think so.
And I thought, and it was amazing how they invited her to come down and they introduced her name and she come out to the tunnel and
The Steelers they know how to pay honor to veterans. They've done a great job with that over the years.
yes, they have.
So is the restriction just like a personal restriction? Like you can't post them on your personal pages and stuff like that? You can only send them to your editor and media outlets?
Right.
Okay. I was trying to understand. I was like, well, how come you can send them to the newspaper?
Well,
You can't
even though
post
the photographer owns the copyright, the NFL has intellectual property rights as well. So that trumps everything.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's their stuff. I mean, you think about the logos on everything, the colors, the uniforms, all of that stuff is licensed, trademarked, everything. So, I mean, they're not going to let you just take pictures of that and be able to make money off of it.
Whoa, wait a minute. Does that mean that they own the drunken Tommy Brown's rant because it was in the NFL stadium?
I would imagine so, probably. That's one for the ages right there.
But as far as showing, I've been wanting to do a photo show and display some of mine, and I've been trying to find a location to do that. Where I can put my pictures on display and have people come in and have some food. And
I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I think honestly, there would be a place for that at a local sports shop. Like if you had a local sports shop that wanted to do a special signing day or something, maybe you could partner up with, a Steelers player who went to Ohio State or something, and you could do some kind of a. I'm just spitballing ideas here.
I was gonna say, heck, man, if you're just, if you're just showing off your body of work and stuff like that, that could even be something you do here when we're finished up and opened up and we have the art gallery.
Yeah, because we're
going on here.
this front area when we're done with the back area with the repairs and everything back there, this front area will be it's going to be an art studio, and then the recording studio will be back there. So this studio that you're in right now is actually going to be permanently located in the back of the studio. So maybe when this is a more of a art studio, maybe that's something we can talk about, because I think that'd be a pretty cool little event to do. Is kind of like a showcase, like an artist showcase.
Exactly.
We just showcase your pictures and we have a sport night. We talk about sports and Maybe we have some, refreshments available and we just kind of hang out, chill.
That sounds like a plan.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be a good time.
Heck yeah. All right. So you got any shout outs you want to give? I mean, I've got all my questions. Greg, you got any other questions?
Yeah, I've asked a few lists as I've thought of them, so he's
Right.
answered pretty much everything.
Well, right now, I'd like to thank Tony Gooding and Coach Lutz from Tiffin Columbian for allowing me to take them pictures for the last 3 years for the team.
For sure.
And I want to thank you for taking those pictures.
Yes.
Because they really
appreciate
helped
it.
us
Thanks
out
a lot.
sometimes.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure that we give you credit and thank you for taking all the pictures that you do because it helps us so much with our job. What I'd really like to do is sometime before next season, I'd like to be able to get both of these Tiffin teams on their picture day. We take a green screen down there and we get those kids in front of a green screen so we can have cool player photos to be able to use during our broadcasts.
Oh, yeah.
I think that'd be so cool to be able to introduce starting lineups with the kids standing in front of a green screen or something,
Oh, that would be awesome.
How cool would that be?
Oh, it's for sure. That's for sure in the works. We're gonna get that done.
We're going to make that happen.
Yeah,
that'll be
one,
a thing.
The one picture you guys had, Damian Brockington,
Yeah.
I was getting ready to leave, and I just saw it. I got to do it, and I just picked up the camera and took a picture, and
Yeah.
it was just one of them spur of the moments, and
That's a great picture. Great picture. All right. So I really want to thank you for coming on. Obviously, you gave your shout outs. I just want to once again thank you for coming on with us, but also for those pictures and for everything that you do for the sports community.
thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, folks, make sure you share the video. If you've got this far, help us out. Share the video, follow, subscribe on all of our platforms. Tune in next week as we'll be back in our original and regular time slot and day. We'll be back on Thursday, 8 o'clock next week. We got a couple special things coming up for you as Greggy and I are going over to Benchwarmers tomorrow to do a little recording, a little food tour segment for Mullin It Over next week.
I was gonna say you might want to pump the brakes a little bit, just in case. We're gonna have Zach Baker on next week, and you know how much he likes to talk. We could have a 5-hour show, so
That's going to have to
we'll
be
have to see
a
what happens
10-minute to 15-minute Mullin It Over food segment. Yeah, for sure. And then we also have, you mentioned Zach Baker. We also have Vince Guerrieri. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a hard name for me, and I want to make sure I get it right before I have him on. So I'm going to sit down with him before we have the interview. He's going to be on a Zoom call with us, and then Zach Baker will be in studio to talk about his new book, Weird Moments in Cleveland Sports. I got my hands on it this week. I'm going to sit down this weekend and pour through it because there's a lot to go through. I'm telling you, folks, if you're a Cleveland sports fan, you know this thing is chock full of interesting little nuggets.
I'm ready to play the game of what's in that book that Zach doesn't already know about.
Yes. But once again, that's next week on Mullin It Over. As for us tonight, once again, I want to thank our special guest, Albert Onderko Jr., for coming on with us. Thanks again. Professional sports photographer. Follow him on Facebook because he does post a lot of his high school pics whenever he goes to a high school game. So once again, thank you for coming on with us. Thanks
Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for all of you for tuning in. If you made it this far, once again, share the video. Follow, subscribe, all of our social media platforms. That's going to do it for Greg Kinn and Albert Onderko. I'm Nate Mullins signing off. Thanks for tuning in right here on Mullin It Over on Heart of Ohio Sports.